I'm Pat Dooris. Welcome to The Story. You know, every day we get a bit closer to the May primary elections in Oregon, which is why we're introducing you to the top candidates for Clackamas County Chair. It's a big job heading the commission in one of Oregon's most populous counties. Last night I talked with challenger Craig Roberts, the former longtime sheriff of the county. Tonight we'll meet the current chair, Tootie Smith, who is running for another term in office. Tootie Smith is a fourth-generation Oregonian growing up on a hazelnut farm in South Clackamas County. She and her husband own it now. She's also started 2 other businesses with her husband, and they've been married 46 years. She got into politics in the year 2000 when she was elected to the Oregon Legislature. In 2012, she left after being elected to Clackamas County Board of Commissioners, where she served 4 years. In 2020, she was elected chair of the county board. Now, as you might have noticed, she has a unique name. I started our conversation asking about that. How did you get the name Tootie?
My grandmother gave it to me, Pat. So my mother was adopted. Her mother died at birth, and she was adopted by a German woman who spoke broken English. And so my given name was Charlene, and she literally could not pronounce it. So she nicknamed me Tootkin or something like that in German. I don't remember the derivative of it. And it just became Tootie, and it stuck. Huh. So grandma's to blame or to thank, either way.
So now you know, and if you want to really impress her, call her Charlene. Smith says she's proud of the work that she's helped lead to stop tolling on I-205 and Interstate 5 and to reform Measure 110. And she wants to do more.
Well, Pat, we've started a lot of projects in Clackamas County. It's taken us a while because when I became chair, we walked right into 3 declared emergencies. We had COVID, we had the firestorms, and then in February, after I was sworn in, we had the ice storms. So we had to manage our way through that. The challenge was to bring our employees back to work and get everything functioning again. And then what happened after we got through COVID, the vaccines and the mandates, we saw this huge spike in homelessness that none of us wanted to really acknowledge. Oh, gee, it's here. So we implemented some strategies in Clackamas County that I think are working. Last report came out, we were able to reduce homelessness by 65% in the last 5 years. And the reason why we went back 5 years is to do a study of what happened in 2019 to see where we are today in early 24 to see if the supported housing services measure, the tax measure, is working. And we can say it is. In Clackamas County, my team likes to say we do things the Clackamas way. And it's a little bit different than we see across the other parts of the region. And it's working, and I'm very happy. We have such a dedicated staff working on this problem.
What do you think the key is to reducing homelessness?
You know, Vahid Brown, one of our homeless managers, he says, we're not very special, but we do have the secret sauce. And I'm quoting him on that, not me. What we do, we have about 20 to 25 dedicated social workers, and they go out on the street almost daily, and they meet a homeless person. We start a conversation. And you're not going to get them to come in the first time, or maybe the second, 10th, or 12th time. But eventually, after establishing a relationship with them, getting to come in, and we start with basic needs like a hot meal, a shower, a clean clothes, and then they go back to the memory of, oh, this is how it used to be in life. I think we're not going to solve homelessness until we address causation. Housing people first without services is going to be very difficult. A lot of people think they know why people are homeless. You know, is it mental health? Is it addiction? Both. Economics, we've certainly seen a spike in the cost of housing and durable goods like groceries and gasoline, and that's probably adding to it. We have a huge rent assistance program that now can be used for people who are renting places and they're coming up short at the end of the month. We get them rent assistance so they don't become homeless, and that's been a big help to us in Clackamas County.
All right, and now in this next section, we're going to talk about the $313 million county courthouse that Clackamas is having built. Half of the cost is being covered by the state. The other half will be paid for by county taxpayers. Although the county commission did not ask for a special bond or levy to cover that cost, the county will have to find that money from the existing budget. And last night I told you something that I want to correct now. I told you the Clackamas County Sheriff is planning $5 million in cuts because of new fees that she's being charged by the county. She says it's to help pay for the courthouse. The mention of cuts is wrong, and I apologize for that. The sheriff is not planning on cuts, but She said there is a $5 million shortfall in her budget, and she plans to ask the county commission for a supplemental budget to cover that $5 million. The battle between Smith and the sheriff has dragged on for almost a year. Last May, Tootie Smith issued a statement highly critical of the sheriff, accused her of lying to county employees through statements the sheriff had made. Smith also accused the sheriff of pitting the sheriff's office against the entire public safety program of Clackamas County. In that same statement, however, the chair also stated we have guaranteed her more money should there ever be a shortfall. So, as you can see, there's not a lot of love lost there, which is why my next question was about that courthouse being built with the approval of Tootie Smith and the Clackamas County Board. Switching topics, the courthouse.
Yes.
Your opponent says that it should not have been built so big and so expensive, and that because of it, it's having a real impact on other departments in the budget in the county.
Yeah. Well, maybe when he was there 4 years ago, it would have. But what we've done at the Clackamas County is we really right-sized our budget. Show me a government that doesn't waste money, and I'll show you a government that doesn't exist. So what we did, we hired a budget manager and a new finance director along with our county administrator, and we started looking at each different department. So I also want to thank my experience in the Oregon Legislature. I was in Ways and Means for 4 years. I didn't like it at the time, and I said, gee, I don't want to be here. Why do I have to be here? Now I know why I was in the legislature. It showed me where there was a lot of waste in government. So we implemented accounting procedures, basic accounting procedures like developed a chart of accounts for every department. They need to post where the money's going. The year-end and monthly end reconciliation of the checkbook. They don't get to carry over big wads of cash at every month. They either have to give it back or they have a use for it. We eliminated vacant positions. Vacant positions is a position that's created, that's funded, but there's no body in it. And we told all of our directors, if you need to hire somebody, we'll do it for you. And probably the biggest was the allocated cost. It's the federal government mandate that we were outdated 2 decades at least on the allocated costs. That's a cost assigned to every department for the cost of doing business, like your mortgage payment, like your water bill, the cost of your desk, your electric payment, and all that costs money. So we smoothed those out, and we found some departments paying and some not, and it really evened out. The biggest economic coup for us is we got a 50% matching grant from the Oregon Legislature. It is constitutional duty that counties have courthouses, and Clackamas County is a statutory county. Our courthouse is very old. It's over 100 years old. It's outgrown its capacity. We should probably have 14 judges. We only have 11 because of the limited space. We're able to do that. We have overwhelming support from the Legislative Fiscal Office and the Oregon Justice Department, who took a deep dive into our budget to decide we could do it. Senate President Rob Wagner, Speaker of the House Dan Riefeld, and the governor all signed on it and improved our budget process. So that's pretty good.
You don't think it's too big or too expensive?
Well, you know, building costs went up. We were able to secure the building costs through the P3 model that we set up 2 years ago. Everything went up in price. I mean, the cost of my home cost too much. I probably couldn't afford my own home right now. But we're trying to keep costs down. We did not go to the taxpayers to raise their taxes. So we're making payments out of the general fund, and we found $15 million of waste. Those payments will start May of '25.
As for her ongoing battle with the current sheriff, Tootie Smith is not backing down, saying the sheriff has plenty of money in her budget. So what's the future hold for the county? Smith says she wants to get the Oregon Legislature and Metro to relax land use laws in the county so that it has more land that new companies can come and build on for growth. So what do you think about what Tootie Smith had to say? Did you like what you heard? Think she should continue as county chair or not? Let us know, will you? The email address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Now let's get to some of your thoughts on my one-on-one interview with Tootie Smith's challenger, former Clackamas County Sheriff Craig Roberts. We talked a lot last night about the financial future of the county, now strapped to that big new courthouse project, as well as his previous experience with drug and alcohol treatment in the county during his tenure as sheriff from 2005 until the end of 2020. Now, normally we expect a pretty good balance of positive and negative emails and voicemails after something like that, but your feedback really so far has been overwhelmingly positive. Dixie wrote to us to say, "When I heard that Craig Roberts was running against Tootie Smith, I did the happy dance. I remember when he was sheriff and he did a good job of it. I have to say, if he wins, I feel sorry for him as he has to fulfill Tootie's dream that is already being built of a new courthouse."
Craig doesn't do what feels good or what's popular. Craig does what's right. I fully endorse Craig for Clackamas County Commissioner. He's an excellent choice, and I have no doubt he will continue to serve the people of Clackamas County.
And then there's this from Sue. "I'm a lifelong Clackamas County resident. I think he has some good common sense. The courthouse project does need to be scaled back. It's just not the right time for anything like this. Craig Roberts knows Clackamas County and is respected, I think, for all his years of service." The lone message that was not in favor of Roberts came on our KGW YouTube page. This viewer wrote, "Tootie Smith has held the line against the progressive decay that has destroyed the state. The only reason anyone would run against her is to solidify that ideology. This coming from a 60-plus year Portland native. Hold the line or you'll be sorry." And by the way, if you missed our interview with Roberts last night, you can find it anytime on the story section of the KGW YouTube page. Coming up next now on The Story, the City of Portland released results of an audit of the Joint Office of Homeless Services. We often hammer the agency for shortfalls, considering the hundreds of millions of dollars of tax dollars that it gets. But what did the city uncover? Blair Best explains when The Story returns. Let's get to the results now of a new audit of the Joint Office of Homeless Services. It shows gaps in Multnomah County's shelter system, not enough shelter, and barriers when trying to get people into permanent housing. Our Blair Best has the story.
This is my house. The cat just jumped out of the window.
This is Jordan's last resort.
This is my cat. His name is Buddha.
After life on the streets, she now has a tiny home in this low-barrier Southeast Portland shelter.
It's like as close to normalcy as we can get.
True for her and about 40 others.
It's not enough. It's not enough to meet the demands.
Now, this homeless village by the Moda Center, it has both tents and tiny homes, and it's independently run, so the county doesn't play a role here. Yet they're seeing such a demand that they turn people away each night.
And it really hurts having to turn people away.
every day because you can clearly see that they need it.
Her concerns echoed in a city-led audit of the county's Joint Office of Homeless Services released Tuesday.
We recommend that the Joint Office use a more data-informed approach to assess need, to be able to look for ways to expand that capacity.
Casey Jones is Portland's Audit Services Director. The audit looked at the past year and a half of the Joint Office's shelter system. It found, and to no surprise for most, there's not enough shelter to meet the need, including long wait lists, accessibility issues, and some shelters not being equipped to move people into permanent housing.
I think the access issue is something that we want to flag.
It's what we see too from our angle.
Matt Stein heads Union Gospel Mission, where they have limited overnight shelter.
We find every night that the beds are full.
Their outreach teams struggle to find other open beds across the city.
There's not a clear system of beds available at shelter X or Y or anything like that, so we can do our best.
The Joint Office acknowledges the need for consistency and says they've been working on it since the fall. Yet despite their efforts, some still choose street life over shelter.
I personally don't like to go to the shelter because they're too needy about the questions that they ask.
Yeah, so you prefer to stay on the sidewalk? And why is that?
I just have the freedom to just I can get up and move whenever. I'm homeless by choice, and I'd rather not be using resources that I don't absolutely need.
Okay, Blair, so we heard some recommendations there. Anything else?
Yeah, a few things. So first was the tracking, right? Tracking the number of available beds and where they are. Then refining the referral process so that beds aren't being held for people who don't show up, because that has been happening. And then creating concrete goals in a way in order to get people out of shelter and into permanent housing.
So that's interesting. There are empty beds, but they said there aren't enough. So how does that square up?
That's right. There are empty beds, and here's why. Because groups like Portland Street Response, even Portland Police, they have beds set aside for them, for the people that they encounter on the streets who say they want shelter. But what the audit found was that those people oftentimes don't show up. So that bed, which was technically accounted for, remains empty. And then someone was likely turned away earlier in the night who wanted that bed. Now, another thing we learned today while we were at Union Gospel Mission is they said they have plenty of recovery beds available right upstairs. But those beds are only for people that choose or agree to go into detox or other treatment services. But as we heard today, and honestly as we hear every day, people on the streets, especially those struggling with addiction, if they can't have an immediate shelter bed with limited rules, right, so low barrier, they prefer to stay on the streets.
It is a tough nut to crack and a big problem. It does seem like the county should say maybe, hey, we've got these reserved beds, but only until 10 p.m. If the people don't show up, we're supposed to have them, then it's open to the people standing in line. That just kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. That would be a good idea, but I know a lot of the timing, right, 10 p.m. is late. They do this around like 5 o'clock at many of the shelters, so yeah, sure, great idea.
Okay, well, not that anyone's going to listen. All right, thank you, Blair. As always, you're shining a bright light on this stuff. Appreciate it. Coming up next on The Story, an update on an investigation about potentially poisonous cookware. A new law in the state of Washington is the first of its kind when it comes to limiting lead in cookware manufacturing, when it takes effect, and what you should be watching out for when The Story returns. The state of Washington is putting companies that make and sell cookware on notice. Get the lead out. A new Washington law restricts the amount of lead metal allowed in the manufacturing of pots and pans. Last year, the investigators at our sister station in Seattle exposed merchants that ignored warnings about toxic lead in imported cookware. Now, Chris Engels reports on the first of its kind state law to crack down on that.
We bought all of these pots within the last year on Amazon. In the future, selling any of these in Washington state will be illegal.
This House Bill 1551, this gives the Department of Ecology the authority to regulate cookware made and sold to Washingtonians to ensure it does not contribute to lead exposure.
Governor Jay Inslee signed House Bill 1551 into law. It will limit lead in cookware made or sold in Washington. The first of its kind state law in the U.S. restricts metal cookware to no more than 5 parts per million in lead content. At 357 parts per million lead, this aluminum pot is 71 times that limit. Testing showed this pot is 95 times over the limit. And this one contains 104 times the amount of lead that will be allowable by law. We purchased each of these pots on Amazon for less than $25.
I mean, it's a huge win. It means so much for Afghan Health Initiative. It means so much for the community.
Ariana Anjaz and the Afghan Health Initiative have been pushing for the legislation.
And we start to see a trend that disproportionately Afghan immigrants and refugees who came into the United States, their children especially, had a high level of lead in their blood.
We purchased a few off the internet, and we actually had a few that were donated to us.
Working with public health agencies, scientists pinpointed these imported traditional Afghan cookers as the source of the toxic lead. They were sold on websites like Amazon and Etsy as aluminum cookware, but tests showed dangerously high amounts of lead in the metal forged by foreign manufacturers. One Afghan child was so hungry for nutrients, his family said he was eating dirt.
So we suggested them to go get testing, and we actually found out that the blood lead content in that child's blood was immense. And it really helped that family to kind of understand why he wasn't listening, why he had such behavioral issues, why he had such anger issues, why he wasn't eating properly, and of course, why your child was eating dirt to begin with.
It's not just Afghan cookware. Further testing by King County's Hazardous Waste Management Program found a wide range of imported aluminum cookware contained unsafe amounts of lead. Websites that put these purchases at your fingertips seem reluctant to pull the products, even when warned about the dangers.
Silent, radio silence, yeah. We reached out. We had very, very little response from anyone.
First tonight, Amazon has removed a line of potentially dangerous cookware from its website.
Amazon removed all Afghan pressure cookers last July after a King 5 investigators report. In response to our recent questions about the new law, Amazon resent the same statement from last year's story. Amazon requires all products offered in our store to comply with applicable laws, and we monitor the products in our store for safety concerns and, when appropriate, remove products. However, this Chinese-manufactured aluminum pot from our July story, which tested at 95 times the lead limit allowed by the new law, is among the items still for sale on Amazon. Until now, no specific law targeted lead in cookware, which is why Representative Jerry Paulette sponsored House Bill 1551.
We're going to have Washington State set a national standard here.
The new law, which goes into effect at the start of 2026, fines merchants who knowingly sell cookware manufactured with too much lead.
Right, here we have 821 parts per million.
Okay, that's quite a bit of lead, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Since sellers could argue they're unaware of the contents of their products, lead tests like these will be handed over to the State Department of Ecology to monitor compliance in Washington.
We tested our kids, they did the blood test, everything, so they tested positive.
That will mean less heartache for parents like Faizul Haq Safi, an Afghan immigrant who learned when he arrived in the United States that his children have high levels of lead in their blood. The new law will spare others.
A lot of Afghans still are using it. Unfortunately, we don't know anything about the lead poisoning.
Researchers say they have not found any problems with aluminum pots that are manufactured in the U.S. It's the imported aluminum that's a problem. They say that really your safest bet is to buy stainless steel cookware. We've got a lot more suggestions for you. Text the keyword POTS to 206-448-4545 and we'll send you details. I'm Chris Ingalls reporting.
By the way, that new law is only in effect for the state of Washington. As far as the feds are concerned, for the rest of the country, the FDA issued an import alert on the Afghan pressure cookers, but that's it so far. Local researchers have asked the FDA for more. For example, the FDA has regulated ceramic dishware since 1971 because of lead, but no such announcement yet on aluminum cookware. So buyer beware. Hey, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. But remember, the story, our collective story, that never ends. It just goes on and on. The good stuff is coming your way next, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30. As we head out, we'll give you a look out the window on a beautiful spring day.